Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today, I'm going to make some people mad. But today, I'm talking about what I consider some of the most overrated artists and bands. There's a bunch of links down below. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Patreon page. Make sure you check all that stuff out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. I guess I should preface all this by saying that whenever I talk about overrated albums or whatever it is on this channel, I always get a bunch of hate. I'm not saying that they're bad artists or they make horrible music or make horrible albums. I have music from all these artists. I'm just saying that, kind of looking back on their careers, I just don't think they're as great as people make them out to be. The first one's kind of a hard one for me because, they're probably one of my top 5 or 6 bands of all time. But if I'm being honest with myself, they're really overrated. I mean, they do have some really good music, but they really don't have any complete albums. And that band is Queen. I think Jazz is probably the best album that the band ever did. I'm sure a lot of people out there probably think, News of the World or one of those albums. But if you go back through a lot of their studio albums, they do have some really great tracks. But the band just never put a full album together. There's a lot of filler music on every single one of their albums. Freddie Mercury, hands down one of the greatest frontmen in rock history. I think had the band not had Freddie and he not been the person that he was, I don't think Queen would be remembered the way that they are. I think that the best thing that the band ever released, really to be completely honest, is probably their 3 greatest hits compilations. Another artist that I absolutely love, but if I'm being honest, I really think that he's overrated. And, I know he's the king of rock and roll, and a lot of people absolutely love his music, but I also know a lot of people out there will agree with me on this one, and that is Elvis Presley. Elvis rose to fame really honestly on the backs of black musicians. And, he didn't really write his own music, really couldn't play a guitar, played a couple of chords and that was really about it. He was a great showman. And I definitely give him credit for that, especially in the late 60s, early 70s, one of the great, showmen of his era. But, outside of his early career where he did release some really great music, after that, it was really more of a miss on pretty much everything he did, studio wise than hit. One of those bands that I never really saw the appeal of, even though I do like a couple of their albums, really outside of the beginning of their career, it's another instance where I think it's more of a miss than hit. And that is Kiss. And I know Kiss is one of those bands where I guarantee it, there's going to be comments down in the comment section. Oh, you had to be there to really understand it. They were, even from when I was a kid, they seemed just so over commercialized. They never really hid the fact that, they were in it. I never felt like they were in it really for the love of the music. It was always just kind of a commercial thing. The band always just seemed like they were out there just to make money. Just kind of lacked authenticity. I know people out there absolutely love Kiss, and there's huge Kiss collectors out there, but outside of like Destroyer and a couple of their other 70s albums, I think it's another instance where most of their career has been kind of filler music. The next one's kind of an interesting one because I do consider them overrated, but part of them not overrated. And that is ACDC. I will say that I absolutely love the Bon Scott era of ACDC. And I think that a large, or pretty much all of the Brian Johnson era of the band is really, it's really forgettable. Outside of Razor's Edge, that's the only album that I think is really kind of up there with all the earlier stuff, with all the Bon Scott stuff. I know, Back in Black is also a great album also. Back in Black was largely written, I think, before Bon Scott's death. But, I've got a friend that, for the longest time has said that AC/DC is really no better than just like your average bar band. They've got a great guitarist, and that's kind of what has made them as big as they are. So I've been on record for a while saying that I think the next band is overrated, and I've had people come up to me in person and can't believe that I think this band is overrated. But that band is Radiohead. I love their first 2 albums, but then they started, I don't know, with OK Computer, they started going down this path of this, like, almost kind of like pretentious progressive rock. And, so many songs, even on Kid A, start out really strong and then kind of like trail on aimlessly without a lot of direction. There's no denying that they are really good musicians, and they do make some good albums, and they do have some good songs on all their albums. But I think overall, holding Radiohead is up there as one of the greatest bands of the '90s and early part of the 2000s. I just never understood it. If you go online and look, the next band is typically on those most overrated bands of all time list. They really kind of built their career off of really 1.5 albums of really strong music. And that band is Bon Jovi. I love Slippery When Wet. I think that, New Jersey, about half of New Jersey, is a really good album also. Kind of up there with the tracks that are on here. But outside of that, I just don't see the appeal to a lot of their other music. A lot of their other stuff, it's good. They're really good musicians, but it's really kind of, like I said, with a lot of the other stuff I've talked about, it's kind of filler music. And the one thing I will give Bon Jovi a lot of credit for is it was an acoustic performance of theirs that inspired the MTV Unplugged series. So I guess I can give them that. But, like I said, largely they built a career off of an album and a half. The next one is another one that's really kind of hard for me to admit because of how much I love their 80s and really kind of early 2000s albums. Some of the best stuff that was coming out over that, decade and a half. And that's U2. Their 80s stuff is incredible. I know they tried to do something a little bit different with Octung Baby, and it worked. 100% worked on that album. I think that was the pinnacle of their career. But once they got into the 2000s, I think that, they kind of, I think, lacked focus on a lot of those albums. I think they lack some of the creativity that they had earlier in their career. And to be completely honest, I don't think they've really released anything of note outside of one album in the last 20 years. A band that was one of my favorites when I was a kid, kind of along the same lines as U2, had an incredible period of their career. And then, kind of had to step down a little bit, and really since then have kind of fallen off the tracks. The band is Aerosmith. Their 70s albums, I love every single one of them. Every one of their 70s albums, I would put up there probably in the top 50 albums of the decade. I'd say top 100. All their albums are top 100 albums for the 70s. Their 80s albums were, like I said, just a kind of a step down. Permanent Vacation, Pump, they're both great albums. Have a lot of really good tracks on there. And the band then released Get a Grip. And I feel like with Get a Grip, they really, really kind of just fell off and really kind of almost turned into this like pop rock band, which I don't really think fit the style of the band. I didn't like the direction the band went after that. They released a couple of tracks, that were decent here or there, but, really since Pump came out, in the early 90s, I don't think the band has really released anything of note. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Music is so subjective. We all have very different opinions. We all have different reasons why we think certain bands or certain albums are overrated. Love to know what you guys think. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know who some of your biggest, most overrated artists are. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a little thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.